one of your books is titled Giving Kids Roots and Wings. And you talk a lot about a struggle that goes on there. So since writing that book and where you're at now, can you expand on your thoughts on that struggle and your thinking around the struggle from when you first wrote about it to where you're at now, as you've been reflecting and thinking more about that?
Yeah, I am a really reflective guy, and I love to talk about struggles I've been through. This happens not to be an area where I really have struggled. And in fact, I have learned that as my kids grew up, this approach of giving them independence as they could handle it, with lots of guidance, not being their friend, but lots of guidance, it paid off. Because you know what? My 24-year-olds are now my best friends. If I said that when they were 16, total pathology, right? Unhealthy relationships. At 24, it's really acceptable. You know what I think you're referring to in terms of the struggle, because I'd love to talk about that. It is the struggle about what happens during adolescence when kids are testing their wings, because it can be really painful, right? Really, really painful. And what happens is great for our small kids, this very comfortable little nest that's all warm and all feathery. And our kids, all they have to do when they want something is go, and we feed them. And then puberty happens. And you then go to offer your kids some food. And then what happens is they become embarrassed by the way you breathe. And they push you away. And then they progress through adolescence, and you look at that nest that they used to describe as warm and cuddly, and now they begin seeing how prickly it is. Then they get to high school, and they get to the end of high school, and they look at that nest, and sometimes they are not just seeing it as prickly, they're seeing it as uninhabitable. And if they didn't, they wouldn't ever fly. This is a developmental process, right? It's a developmental process that they have to go through that is sometimes very, very hard for parents. Very, very hard, because they push us away so they can learn to test their own wings. But when we haven't tried to dominate them, instead we've guided them towards independence. We are like the wind behind their sails instead of snow plowing for them. The kids fly, but you won't have an empty nest. They'll be in flight, and they'll come back to you for loving support. But if you're in the middle of it, for the parents who are watching us now, if you're in the middle of this and your kid is pushing you away, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can feel terrible at times, right? Let's be honest. But what you want to do inside is you want to remind yourself that the reason your kid is hating you temporarily is because they love you so deeply that it hurts. And if they don't go through the process of spreading their own wings and imagining how to get by without you, they would never fly. So it is a temporary process. And when we hover, it only backfires, which is why I don't think you guys planned it this way, but you couldn't have asked two questions in a row that were better, that would follow one another better. Because when we really support the independence in a loving and nurturing way, that's the wing. That's supporting the wings while giving the roots.
I appreciate. Struggle is something in education we talk a lot about, because the importance of kids struggling is a requirement for learning. And it's always a challenge because teachers want to come in and rescue kids earlier because we're uncomfortable watching kids struggle sometimes. Yeah. And good teachers, good parents can understand the struggle as part of it. And without the struggle, there's no real change. So that's a tricky.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's absolutely how you learn. Remember, adolescents especially are super learners. They're going to be learning more quickly than they are at any other age. How do you learn? By pushing the limits of existing knowledge. That's how you learn. And that can be hard sometimes. But I could not possibly agree with you more.
Yeah, I appreciate that.